Ladies and gentlemen, the American Jerry and Bulldog Nation, even as a young boy on Green Road, I remember some encounters with black men and women that were very pleasant and normal. And I never saw race as an issue at all. In addition to that, I want to tell you a story that I think is indicative of how most Americans feel about race that happened when I was in the fifth grade. I was much more outgoing. I was the sixth child of Charles and Mary Sue Deters, but I was probably the most outgoing child of all of it. In other words, my personality was such, I wanted to go do things. I mean, I played sports. I did things that my other older brothers and sisters didn't do. And I wanted to go, I was on the farm and I was in the fifth grade and it was summertime, and the YMCA had this program down in Covington. And you could ride this bus from Kitten Elementary all the way down in the morning and all the way back in the afternoon. And you could spend Saturday at the Y. And I could play basketball, I could swim, do all these things. And I didn't know anybody. I got on this bus and I made friends with some of the kids that were on the bus, and we took the bus down to YMCA. So here is Country Mouse visiting City Mouse, fifth grade. And I'll never forget this story. We were playing basketball, and for the lack of a better word, just so you understand the description, a young boy that, for lack of a better word, we will say white trash. I mean, this kid scared the hell out of me. He started picking on me. Coming to my aid was a big, chubby black boy named Jerome. I don't know whatever happened to Jerome, but to this day, I still remember his first name, Jerome. And Jerome put that kid in his place and came to my defense. And I was like, man, that's pretty nice. So I could tell that Jerome was poor. I mean, let's face it, even when you're a kid, you notice, I could tell that Jerome was a poor kid. I mean, it was a special program probably for poor kids that was being ran down there. And I wasn't a poor kid, but I got to go. So anyway, I made friends with Jerome. It was so funny. I would buy Jerome. He wasn't as big as Fat Albert, but I'm using that as a description too. I would buy Jerome Reese cups and candy bars, and we became good buddies. And I never had to worry about anybody ever picking on me. Jerome took care of me, and we became friends. He gave me protection. I gave him chocolate. And I want to tell you something. The lesson, the moral of the story that I'm telling you is I didn't give a damn that Jerome was black, white, blue, or green. He helped me, and we became friends. And he actually helped me against the white kid that was picking on me. Content of your character, not color of your skin. Exhibit A, fifth grade experience. And I had a great exchange last night with Fanon Rucker about this. And I told him, I said, I can't imagine. I'm anti-Black Lives Matter in their Marxist agenda and everything else. But I told Fanon, I said, you know what? I can't imagine what it's like for you as a black male and growing up in America. You have to have experiences that are such. But you know what? We white Americans have empathy for you. I grew up on Little House on the Prairie. It's the only thing we could watch. Little House on the Prairie, The Waltons, John Wayne movies, Western, Tarzan, Disney, watch Roots, Kung Fu, you name it. What do all those shows have? Good moral stories, good versus evil, kindness, helping people. I mean, I grew up with this empathy. Plus, I have a brother that had cerebral palsy. I mean, empathy, which I carried in this day. And I remember watching Roots, and I remember watching Cicely Tyson play her character in that show that she did. I mean, and it was like, man, this is just so awful. Kill the Mockingbird. I remember being a little boy watching that movie and like, this is awful, And I think 99% of Americans feel the exact same way I do. I mean, I think we the same damn way. It's you call them as you see them, man. And I think that's the tragedy. I told Fanon, I said, George Floyd, everybody was on that team. this is wrong. Everybody. And it got hijacked for people with a political agenda. And that's a tragedy. Because, as you've heard me say before, the race issue ends when blacks and whites, we all call them as we see them. For example, Fanon's client, who is obviously messed up on drugs, tries to bite a sheriff's boot, did not deserve to get his head kicked like a football still. I call him the way I see him. I mean, that's what has to happen, but that's not what goes on. That's not what goes on. And it's hijacked by the liberal left. And that's a trend. George Floyd could have been the moment. God, it could have been the moment. Well, we're not talking about all the other, we're like, hey, this is wrong. We all agree that it's wrong. Let's just leave it alone. Instead, they use that against us. What? You see how wrong that is? So anyway, I wanted to share that story with you. This is the Bulldog. Every dog has their day. Have a great day.